Deep within a valley surrounded by towering mountains sat the ancient kingdom of Suryagar. Its ruler, King Veer Pratap Singh, was known as a formidable warrior on the battlefield and a remarkably fair leader at home. Under his watch, the kingdom achieved an incredible level of wealth and stability. You could measure that success by a single stringent standard: absolutely no one in the realm went to sleep hungry. Then the climate collapsed. A brutal 2-year drought settled over the mountains. The rivers dried up, leaving behind nothing but cracked earth. The crops withered to dust. Widespread famine set in, and a deep existential panic swept through the once secure population. Extended periods of peace and wealth often create an illusion of permanent safety. It takes a severe shock to expose just how fragile that stability actually is. This chart tracks the royal grain reserves. Over a 2-year timeline, the food supply plummeted, and time was running out. Ministers advised a pragmatic plan: halt public distribution, hoard remaining grain for the army, cutting the public off completely. It is a cold calculus, but mathematically logical. If a state starves its own army and depletes its core resources, the government collapses, leaving the territory defenseless against outside conquest. But the cost of that strategy was harsh. The ordinary citizens of Suryagar would be left to fend for themselves, with zero state support. This forces the ultimate ethical dilemma of leadership. When resources are finite and running out, a ruler must decide if their primary duty is to protect the abstract institution of the state or the living, breathing people who make it up. King Veer Pratap rejected his minister's advice immediately. He flatly refused to prioritize the preservation of the state over human life. His philosophy was incredibly straightforward. An intact kingdom, a functioning government, and a well-fed army mean absolutely nothing if the citizens they represent are allowed to die. He turned his philosophy into rapid action. The king unlocked the heavy doors to the royal treasury and the final grain reserves, throwing them wide open to the general public. To conserve food, he abandoned all royal privilege. The elaborate banquets stopped, and the king survived entirely on small, dry, meager rations. In this moment, the king shifted the entire weight of the crisis onto his own shoulders, making his own survival as precarious as that of the lowest citizen. But issuing a royal decree doesn't solve a famine. The king knew that an edict on paper is useless if poor logistics prevent the food from actually reaching starving mouths. So he ran his own audit. Stripping off his royal garments, the king walked the dark streets in disguise to inspect relief efforts firsthand. During one of these night patrols, he struck up a conversation with an old, weary farmer. The man had no idea he was speaking directly to his ruler. The farmer gave him a raw, unfiltered assessment. He called the king a living god, a leader willing to starve his own body just to guarantee the village children had something to eat. The farmer's words revealed a profound shift in the village. The king's shared hunger had turned a desperate population into a fiercely loyal one, willing to stand by a leader who refused to eat while they starved. This interaction proved that survival was about more than just the grain itself. It was about the trust forged when the person at the top experiences the same reality as the person at the bottom. The kingdom reached a rare equilibrium. The leader had completely sacrificed his own comfort, and the people responded with pure, unified gratitude. And then the weather finally broke. The skies opened up, pouring relentless, torrential rain over the mountains and ending the brutal 2-year drought. Suryagar physically restored itself almost overnight. The dry riverbeds swelled with fresh water, and the dusty, barren fields sprang back to vibrant life. The king's radical gamble to completely empty the reserves worked. It accomplished its single objective: keeping the human population alive just long enough for the environment to naturally recover. It exposes a strategic paradox. Hoarding resources out of fear almost guarantees the destruction of your society, but a calculated, radical generosity can sustain a fragile system until stability returns. The story of Suryagar reads like historical folklore, but the analytical takeaway from King Veer Pratap's philosophy directly applies to modern crisis management. In peacetime, when a system is resource-rich, anyone can keep the scale balanced. But when crisis hits, the burden side collapses. True leaders don't protect their side. They immediately sacrifice their own status to balance their people's sudden vulnerability. You cannot manage a catastrophic crisis from a safe, comfortable distance. You have to physically and emotionally step down into the trenches to share the suffering. Leadership proves its own worth by its willingness to dissolve its own comforts and even its own survival to ensure the people it serves can endure.